Hi, Tex.
Hi, Day.
How are you?
Very busy, but overall good. Thanks for asking. Yourself?
Good, good. Same way. Good to be busy. And yeah, I didn't expect to be busy so much, but somehow good to be busy. Hey, Dean. Adam, how you? Darlington. Hello, hello. Oh, not there yet.
Hey, there we go. Good morning, guys.
Morning there.
GM.
GM.
I guess it's good happy hour over here.
Just waiting a few more minutes here. We don't yet have a quorum and missing quite a few committee members. So only have apologies from one. So. All good, Bora. There we go. All right. So we are not yet able to make decisions, but we will hope that a few committee members pop in here sometime soon. At the very least, we are 5 minutes in, so we may as well get started. And yes, please drop your introductions if you have not already, if you are a committee member. Attendees, you're not required to. Okay. So welcome to the Open Source Committee meeting for August 6th, 2026. We do have our chair, Sebastian, here as well. Okay, cool, I can scroll. Perfect. So a number of things here on the list. To be honest, I kind of just spewed out a number of the things that have been on my table or across my desk over the last couple of weeks. The goal would be, as appropriate, to have some general discussion. I can pull up documents as necessary if desired or comfortable on the open meeting here. If you want to just review those privately, again, we can just hold on to that topic while we discuss it. First one up is MRP, or Maintainer Retainer Program Status Updates. So I'm very pleased to share that the Maintainer retainer program is pretty much in full swing at this point. I have the tasks out and available for the original. It's actually 5, so 6 was dropped to 5. Those maintainers, they have months 1 through 4 available to reply to, if you will. And then the others that were onboarded have month 1 all available. As we are right up against the deadline here, we did have 2 additional interviews. Happy to take some committee opinion. As it was seen from at least the initial review, looks like 1 may not make the program. 1, we're currently exploring options with TX Pipe. We did have a third or another one, being Adam Dean, who's here on the call. And the goal would be to assign Adam to some Ecclesia. The Ecclesia voting stack as far as maintainer retainer. So we'll be looking for some approval there as well. I also have a request to provide, if desired, some maintainer retainer spots to D quadrants, specifically for GovTool. And then we also have Adam Rush here for both a tooling proposal, but also a maintainer retainer program assignment there as well. Happy to take some questions on that. I know that is quite a packed update there. I guess I can also throw in that that 6th maintainer from group 1, it looked like there was generally some positive or just okay sentiment to allow us to restart that contract, but I do know that there was some conflicting opinion, so happy to discuss that as well. As I haven't heard from you guys in the Discord channel, here's the spot. So if you have any concerns with basically bringing as many maintainers into that program as possible within our timeline, which the official timeline is going to be later this month, according to the 6-month or the 18-month runway that we have with Ondamio. So if you have a concern about the maintainers being brought on under the program currently, or any other decision that's been made so far, please raise it now. Okay. We are at 5 members. I don't believe that's exactly core because we do have 9, so we'd want to have at least a 6th voice in there. But we will keep moving along. You guys can stop me here at any time. The only attendee that I do not see here as of yet is Kola from Awen. He's actually the next one up here on the list, which is the cellist statement of work. I've provided that to you all in a Google Doc format, but there have not been any comments provided. Need to know if there's any concerns that way or if that's something that we can get over into contracting. So let me see if I can pull that and drop the link in the Discord for you all. I've just refreshed the cello link in the Discord there. Any questions openly while we're on this topic? Okay. The next one is the Cardano node emulator statement of work. We do have Matthew present if you have any questions that may not have been answered by comment. So now would be your time to ask anything about Cardano node emulator.
Yeah, I think we approved in past, right? And all good. I understand these are now final SOW, so it's all good to me. It's no more moting. All good.
Hey, we'll check
Yes.
minutes. I think we approved them to submit a statement of work, but we had not officially approved the statement of works themselves.
Yeah, understand.
Yeah, from the last minutes, one of the actions there was for me to share the statement of works, which I have done for both Cella and Cardano Node Emulator. So we're just in that review and feedback phase. What I can do is I can put up a poll for each of those here. I'll try to put a poll up for the maintainer retainer stuff as well. But again, by a quick count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're still just at 5 members right now, so we would need additional votes to be quoted there. Sorry, Sebastian, I didn't mean to cut you off in the middle there.
No, I just agree with this.
I think there has been an internal vote for the Cardano Node emulator so far inside the OSC Discord, but not for the Cella or this governance tool, right?
So yes, but on the Cardano Node emulator, it looks like that was it tied 3 votes, so that was unsuccessful. We did not reach a solid decision on that one, so both are still up for review at this point. That being said, since we did mention or call out the vote here, Bora, you were one of the ones in the no category. Is there something different that we could change about that, especially considering we have the writer of the document here? Something that might change your mind or perspective on that?
I think the concern overall was the competing alternative tooling that would be available instead of revamping the work package proposed, right? That was the discussion point we had. I don't know much if we could revise or iterate on the work package because it wouldn't address the main concern from the committee, right? That there is competing alternatives that are maintained and whether Mathieu, for example, would be able to use those alternative tools that we have mentioned, right? Because it seemed like when we talked about this work last time, it was mostly about that the consumers of the tooling were mostly Twig and Mathieu and their work themselves, and there hasn't been there were not so many activity outside them who are interested to use this tool. So that was my concern. That's why I voted no. As I found the budget to be too much for a tool that might not get so much traction with the proposers themselves. So that's my rationale, I would say. I don't think so it would change. Or if there's an explanation from Mathieu or the or whoever said yes, what's their claim, or if there are other teams interested in using the tool that I might not be aware of, would change my mind.
I'd love to give Matthew some input here, but just some additional clarification on this, right? This is a multifaceted effort. So under the tooling, what this is going to do is bring Cardano Node Emulator back to the stage or back to the front as being a competitive tool, as is being kind of criticized here. It's also a tool that would be having maintainers assigned under the maintainer retainer program. And I've actually had contact with one of those maintainers. It is the maintainer in question from that original group of 6 that we're looking at restarting, where they also have some additional vision on how to get more value out of the Cardano Node Emulator in and of itself. The last piece that I would say is that if there are other emulators, if they are in a similar position where they may need or benefit from support, they have not come to apply through the program. And so we are at the point where we do have to take who has applied for funding and make a decision on that basis there. But denying funding just because the other tools have not come to request it, that may not be the strongest piece on that. But that's I'm just trying to provide facts here. So I will pass it off to Matthew because he's here if he has any other thoughts.
Yeah, sorry, but I also find it that if there are no tools who came to apply for funding, it's also not a ground for the only tooling that applies in this domain to be funded as well. I think that's my take.
Fair opinion.
Yeah, I can add a few things. Hi, everybody. I think it's a fair point, and there was a comment in the document which I answered, which is that in fact Cardano node emulator doesn't get a lot of traction these days. There were some in the past, and our hope was that we would not be the only consumer, right? That we've discussed here, for example, with Emmanuel, who was very keen on maybe trying to get more tractions. That's something we intend to do, but I can't deny the fact that it doesn't have too much right now. That's something I can't deny. However, something I wrote in the document is that I think there's worse in trying to revamp and trying to refresh some of the old tools which used to get a lot of tractions for good reasons. That's why we wanted to do that. I can't say much more, to be honest.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. I think it was it's not something we didn't cover. I just voted in how I viewed, and I would be keen to hear from someone who voted yes, maybe about their rationale, and it would create a better discussion while we are at it.
Yeah. I think I don't remember, but initially I think I was on yes side, and I believe that I think Matthew, there were like 3-4 kind of proposals were there from them. Very excited, but this one was front runner, had some value or good value. We could see potentially. I remember that was not much proven per se, that we didn't have the data to prove or look at it, but among the other proposals, this looked like has a better value. So from that standpoint of view, I was in yes mode. Right now, I do have feel that the budget, because that time I didn't have the budget, the visibility that how much cost we're talking about it. Right now, I feel in the same camp as Bora that amount looks comparatively high than I would have thought of. So that maybe need, if it's possible, to relook at that. But that's where I am right now today. Or maybe I need to look into more detail that how the budget is consumed, so feel better. So in other words, in summary, I'm up for this to pass and be implemented. Even there are some competing things, that's okay. But probably the budget is more. There's something or maybe double than I expected.
I don't know the exact process here, but I think the budget could be debatable, right? We could always reduce the time. What I wanted to achieve with this statement of work is both have a nice period of time at the beginning to update the tool, to get tractions, and then have a maintainer from the community take over, kind of, right? That would be the idea. And it depends how much time we have and how much budget we have at the beginning is going to really imply how much work we're going to be doing. Really, if the budget is an issue here, I think there's some discussion that can be taken. In terms of the actual budget per hour, that's not much. I believe at least. But since it's a 6 months engagement, which I proposed, obviously the budget goes accordingly. But I think this is something that can be discussed based on the committee's opinions on this.
That's fair way to put it. I understand, Matthew.
I think just to give more context, maybe from what I have been observing, these emulator tooling or these local developer test nets, right? Like these dev nets, these are all kind of being, let's say, brought under one umbrella in many of the SDKs. We have seen from, especially from the recent push from the Scalus team to build these building blocks into these SDKs, such as Evolution or Mesh. And now these off-chain SDKs provide ample amount of tools to do offline testing. That is my, so those are also projects that are being maintained and are already under the maintainer retainer program. So my rationale was that they wouldn't go unmaintained and that we are not creating new tools. If we are not funding this, we are not throwing away old software to create something new, which will be thrown away in the future, but rather that this vertical has been covered by other tools that are serving many of the toolkits a developer needs under one umbrella, and it's better convenience. I think that it makes more sense that in its current state in 2026, we don't build standalone tooling, but rather contribute to these packaged tools as much as we can, so that there is less fragmentation across the developer tooling ecosystem, and that over longer times it will actually make the maintenance cost also lower for the ecosystem to fund its critical tooling that every developer will need. Oh yeah, like that's again my take. That's why I voted no. But I really appreciate, Matteo, that you have been really exhaustively answering also the question in the documentation. I think you've done a really good job at like being really honest and transparent about where you're coming from. I think it's really not about the proposer or how it was proposed, but rather just the work package for me.
Yes, thanks for mentioning that. I think that's the way I wanted it to be, right? Obviously, I come here in the name of my company, but I also come here as an individual. And I think being honest about the state of the tool, where I want it to go, how we use it, and all of this, I think it's fair for a committee that's going to allocate money for the project, right? I think that's the minimum I could do.
All right. I'm going to keep it moving on this. I definitely really appreciate the continued discussion here. Believe what will happen, again, because it was a null vote in the Discord channel. I will put that up again. But a second null vote may prevent that from going up a third time. So we'll see where we land there based on continued conversation. If you have some additional thoughts or comments, please feel free to leave them in the comments while we move on. The next thing up, I moved this around, or I had plans to get this on the agenda, but I was missing it when I was typing this up. Darlington reached out to me about some updates with DB Sync and a website, so I wanted to give him the floor for a few minutes. And I'll give it to him now. That way he can still make his weekly team meeting, hopefully. But Darlington, here's your time.
Where is the mic? Thanks, text. 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 Yes, let me grab a link here to share with you guys. But basically, like some of the other core infrastructure libraries that Intersect or IOG manage, there's a documentation site that people can go through and engage. Where can I? Sorry, I'm trying to find the preview link. So what I proposed to the DBSig team is something similar, and but also maybe take it a step forward. Let me post this in here now. Something I did a rough version of this. They like the idea, so now this is the refined version of what would go live. If There is support from Intersect, OSC, because we need to decide where to host the thing and stuff like that. It's mostly static. It will be using Dottysaurus and React. But there is an idea to have a long running survey encouragement for people to report their usage around DB-Sync. So some tiny SQLite service in Cloudflare or something uh, is what I'll be needing from Intersect. But yeah, the big idea is to sort of bring DB-Sync up to other tooling in terms of documentation and example queries and some misconceptions around how DB-Sync needs to be run can be cleared if we introduce something like a config builder that let people say how they want to use DB-Sync, and then we generate a config snippet, um, and even be able to print out projection around uh, compute and memory and disk they would need. Um, just those kinds of things, and then try to find out who is using DB-Sync and list them on the site. That is the long and short of it. And I think this is coming up here because I know there's also a developer experience portal that has some documentation. But I think they can go hand in hand with this site because on here really is things like the config builder, and the not just the schema, but example queries for pretty much every typical use case that you might find within the ecosystem, from Explorer to Dap doing things like real examples people can maybe copy or point their clinker to and stuff like that. Back to you.
There's a new. I heard you wanted to run this long-running survey
Yeah.
that Intersect could maybe do. I have an idea about that. There is this new CIP, not a new, but there is a recent push for the CIP 179. Here I'm linking it in the chat, which is all about how do we run polls or surveys on chain and create transactions while doing so and use the infrastructure Cardano network provides. So there you
That
would
could be
be
neat.
able to, yeah. So it has a couple modes of how to run the survey. There are multiple different mechanisms you could utilize, and I can connect you to Mathieu, who's pushing Giesenberg from Cardano Foundation, who's pushing for the CIP recently. So if there's interest, maybe there's a way to use the chain itself for the survey.
Yeah, that get rid of the SQLite and a backend. Like the thing can remain fully static.
I would also raise that I've asked Adam to join the call here on the basis of some internal decisions. I don't want to confuse too much, but CIP 179 is related to some of the work that Adam would be doing under the maintainer retainer program relative to the Ecclesia voting stack as an option there. So I'll leave it to him if there's any specific input into this part of the conversation here, but just interconnecting or interweaving topics as I see them.
Yeah, any comment from me would be purely self-serving, so I'll save it unless we're going to actually properly introduce the Ecclesia plan.
Gotcha.
So, what do I need to take this forward? Is that just a continuing conversation with your text, or is someone else?
Is there a certain cost that you're needing, or is it simply just hosting an additional page, or?
Yeah, I just need GitLab action authority and someplace to triple static site and maybe a domain or subdomain, so I can push and have it go there.
Okay. I'll check to see if that presents any additional cost or major additional cost to us here. We'll see if we can get something lightweight that's up and running. If it requires an additional cost, I'll work with you to get an official number or so brought back to OSC for decision.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. Yeah, we'll do Adam and then Adam. So sorry. Again, I recognize the agenda is not perfect. But Adam Dean, if you'd like to share a little bit on the Ecclesia stack as we've talked about here. And again, this is still going to go into any additional vote needed to onboard Adam Dean into the Maintainer Retainer program. Just some quick basis on this. Intersect had a contract with the Ecclesia builders for the budget process for 2026. Part of that was open sourcing that tooling. As I spoke more with Adam, essentially that tooling was quite specifically designed to the budget process and would not serve on its own as something that's easily modifiable for other purposes. But the Ecclesia stack itself, it's actually held under Learner Labs. It would be beneficial in that way. So the idea here is that we're just looking at additional tools or repositories rather that we'd be adding under the Maintainer Retainer program to still provide funding and make things usable across the ecosystem. And this year is lightweight where it's under the Maintainer Retainer program and not requiring a full tooling grant here. But I will pass it off to you here at this point, Adam, for some of the things we discussed.
Sure, yeah. So just the super quick elevator pitch, high level, is the concept is to bring name work in progress, but Ecclesia Development Fund as a sub organization under Intersect rather than an Intersect owned organization, which means it would kind of be like the Cloud Native Compute Foundation under Linux Foundation, where because the intent is for Ecclesia to either become self-sustaining or go away and slip into obscurity rather than become an ongoing burden that the Treasury must bear. So what we would like to do is get the help and support from Intersect to manage funds, oversee our own internal governance, and make sure things are working in a good open source fashion without becoming too dependent on welfare from the OSC or the Treasury or anything else. So its use should justify it. And yeah, so the proposal module, yes, it was highly specific to both the budget process and the CC elections that we recently hosted on behalf of Intersect. But the idea is that we should be hosting regular community polling in a Hydra State channel where there's zero cost to participants and really start kind of both utilizing our great L2 technology that we have on Cardano and showcasing it while also getting more informed opinions, because that way, anytime we have a question, we can have it tossed into a monthly poll, essentially. The idea being high level there that anybody that wants to add a poll to or a question to a polling cycle would pay some amount that would go into Ecclesia development funding to support the Ecclesia ecosystem. And we already have multiple examples of several community-built tools, one of them from Adam Rush himself, where they're utilizing kind of the open APIs that the Ecclesia stack exposes to build their own tooling. So the long-term goal would be to bring multiples of these community tools as well. Basically, whoever's providing the user interface and bringing users into Ecclesia also receives some of that funding. So this would be more of a management and oversight by the OSC versus a direct obligation. And again, it doesn't make it Intersect owned, quote, air quotes, to where there's some sort of ongoing sense of obligation if this grand experiment fails, essentially. It can stay under Learner Labs and just be a hobbyist project or not used at all anymore without any ongoing burden to the Intersect organization.
Adam Rush, before we move to you specifically, did you have any thoughts or comments you would like to share here on the Ecclesia item?
Oh, yeah, sure. I mean, I'm willing to say from the board perspective that the idea of having sub-organizations that Intersect can serve as that umbrella organization that facilitates, this kind of cooperation where, you can take advantage of our structure and our fundraising and oversight of funds through Cardano Development Holdings is exactly the direction that we're wanting to go to serve the community and kind of move in that Linux Foundation model. So like what Adam Dean is proposing is, right within the model of strategically where Intersect wants to go. And I'll leave it up to the committee to decide if this is a good fit for the open source committee.
With that, I will pass this off to committee members for any thoughts, comments, or questions.
Yeah, sounds like a good idea, and I think great generosity from the Adam Dean as well. I'm still trying to follow up. First part clear that okay, handing over or being this part of kind of Intersect ecosystem. Not sure what is expected out of Intersect or community in this one or from open source. So I'm trying to understand the details or expectation maybe, but otherwise idea looks good.
I would say the expectations would be, for one, like Adam Roosh kind of touched on, benefiting from the already existing nonprofit structure of Intersect. So as a sub-organization, we could, instead of having to stand up our own nonprofit, kind of benefit under that umbrella, which is going to obviously reduce costs because we don't need to go and find funding for yet another Cayman Islands bank account to be set up or something else where, we don't have to worry about where the funds are coming from or going to. So Intersect in its role as a budget administrator would kind of have high level view into how we're spending the money and if we're spending it correctly in line with our mission. I would imagine the role of the OSC being arbiters of any actual like governance or ownership disputes that did arise in the Ecclesia governance model, which will hopefully grow to be its own committee of people that manage specifically the Ecclesia ecosystem. And so a large part of the expectation would be, is this tooling continuing to be developed? Is it continuing to be a useful tool to the community? And so some sort of a regular, I would expect there would be an expectation by the OSC for some sort of regular reporting cadence to come back and allow you guys to determine if this is still a good fit under the Intersect umbrella, essentially.
Yeah, much more clear. I think much more clear. Thank you, Adam, for that. With that, just a general question to maybe Tax and everyone, like the Shela or Chela, we say the SOW, is that overlap with the Ecclesia's kind of the objective or what we're working, or it's totally different, or can it be not like this Shela thing be part of Ecclesia initiatives as well? Is there any overlap or not? I'm just trying to figure it out.
So right now, everything that is on the agenda for looking at connecting dots, the only very thin line that's been drawn is some of the back end of the DB Sync website with a potential future development for the Ecclesia stack relative to SIP 179. Cella is a tool specifically for constitutional committee members. Cardano Node Emulator is obviously a tool to spin up additional nodes. And then there is another regulatory tool, which is next on the agenda here, but that is specific to providing information back to regulators regarding Cardano's proof as a blockchain, that we have the right things that we need. I'll leave that for Adam Rush to describe more in a moment. But no, to answer the direct question here, what Adam is talking about and the Cella project here, those are different. So
yeah, I understand the different, but like this was trying to figure out the Cella do the what you want to call it, the constitutional committee voting tool. is not the ecclesia also kind of close by or can do the same thing, or they okay together, something like that?
We could draw or synthesize a number of connections there, but the basis here is that for Cella, it's designed for the individual members of a constitutional committee to be able to go through a governance action and decide what their vote is so that they can provide a proper decision as part of their multi-signature transaction. The Ecclesia tooling here is specific to having individual votes from wallet holders or DREPs within the ecosystem who would be voting on much smaller items, not anything up at the governance action level. So, you know, in one frame of mind, we could potentially see Ecclesia replacing the purpose of info actions at some point in the future, but again, that would have to be something that's changed in the Constitution. So right now, the two are unrelated there. Ecclesia is just going to be putting up anybody in the ecosystem wants to put up a poll to get ecosystem sentiment, but without it being a governance action. So,
okay, and that's probably future potential, but yeah, for now I understand the objectives are slightly different, so they're independent as of now. Understand? So to me, I think all up for that kind of objective very much. I feel like the great gesture from Adam Dean to kind of put it this way and make it more efficient. So he's already been working on this kind of non-profit kind of mechanism already, and now he take initiative to make it more efficient and put together with Intersect. I think it's a great initiative.
great, thank you, Dave. Any other thoughts before we move on? Okay. I continue to move stuff around here because the latter half of the agenda is just really a reminder of documents that we have in progress. So please contribute where you can. Adam Rush, if you're in a good position, we're going to move over to the regulatory evidence portal here, the tooling proposal that you'd like to submit.
Yeah, thank you much. I'll have to rely on you to share screen because I'm driving right now, so I'll have to be hands-free. But I appreciate everyone taking the time to listen to my pitch. I have this tool. I'm in the exact opposite camp, I think, from Mr. Dean, where he's bringing you something that's finished and looking for a home to continue. I have a proof of concept that I need to launch, and I think the open source committee, open source office would be a good way to do that. So about a year ago, at the board level, we started talking about the ramifications of the Clarity Act here in the U.S. and how we could show regulators that we would meet what the House version of the Clarity Act called a mature blockchain system. So I started engaging student researchers at the University of Illinois to dig into this, to come up with what would be essentially the regulatory evidence we would need to show that Cardano is fully decentralized and meets that mature blockchain system category. We have had a ton of people contribute to this. Steve Lupian was one of the people who worked with the students and gave them an interview. I believe they also interviewed Darlington and others in the ecosystem that they contacted. And I basically was in weekly meetings with these researchers, just sort of guiding the research, putting this all together. And so what I have now is, after taking their research and my own research and working up a report on what we need to show for a regulator-facing evidence package, I hired a crack team of developers, all named Claude, to help me build a proof of concept. So I now have, for your consideration, the report that I shared with the board of directors, and the board did approve this yesterday to go forward as an Intersect project, as well as a proof of concept website that I'm hosting on my own domain that you can look at. And what I basically need is somebody to look at my GitHub code base to tear it apart, a real developer, because I'm 20 years out of my courses on Python and C, and I've never been a practicing developer, to basically look at this and say, like, does this make sense? Will this will this portal actually work at scale, and can we get it out there for people to use? I don't think it's a huge heavy lift because it's purely an information portal. It does have some things I think are good features, like we will need to have it interface with a full node and with Dune and Koyos to take snapshots, and then every day it will post a hash of the information for that day that basically creates a regulatory record. And each hash that it'll make basically its own little chain that will be on Cardano transactions as its own little regulatory chain on our blockchain, where anytime a regulator or a person who is building on Cardano who wants to know, is Cardano a mature blockchain system, they can go and look at this chain of evidence to see that we've been tracking it and that we can show what our status is as a mature blockchain system. So that is something that will need to be run as infrastructure. But I think that the main thing is I'm basically looking for some help to have somebody take this over, get like a maintainer retainer to audit the code, make sure the code is in good shape, help to launch it on Intersect infrastructure, and then or maybe have like a private partnership where they have infrastructure that runs it, and then maintain those records for for posterity. So yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys have.
I might jump in. So are all these all the data that are being displayed are all derived from on-chain metrics, right? That we can query, and this is a nice front end and a proof of provenance tool.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
So,
because the main problem is that regulators they aren't going to go and run their own query, right? They're not going to go and hook up the DB sync. So if we can do that for them, but then also provide the proof of how they can verify it, well, we can give that evidence to them.
That kind of makes me think about the Dune integration we had, and which like, or any chain analytics tool or chain intelligence tool. So it's like proof of provenance sounds cool, but if all metrics are already derived from historical data anyway, that an analytics tool can always roll back and analyze the same data set and come to the same conclusion and not trust the proof of provenance hashing at all, right? Like, and if this is too much of an overhead for regulators to do so, I think understanding what proof of provenance here means and which data was pulled in, etc., is also overhead. So I think using higher levels of abstractions, like tools like Dune, which was part of one of the critical integrations we undertook, which serves similar data, and modifying it in a way to serve whichever body or entity would need that information. Aren't we already covering this in our ecosystem? Like, is there actually a gap that I'm not seeing right now that to make this a reasonable investment?
That's fair. I think that the way I would answer that is that one, I think that maybe there are some metrics that Dune might not get. One thing is that I will be asking for attestation from both Cardano Foundation and Cardano Development Holdings to share their snapshots, which they already do through Weave, which is an on-chain snapshot. I don't know if Dune is grabbing that already. So the question is, do we go in and do we ask Dune to start grabbing that kind of stuff, or do we have another thing? So I guess kind of the question is, like, what burden do you want to put on the regulators to go and do this? Do we have, like, when a regulator says, hey, we're now requiring somebody within the ecosystem to develop a semi-annual disclosure agreements, and Intersect takes on that role, are we going to be like, is Intersect going to be the one saying, like, well, here is the snapshot from Dune, we got it from Dune, but we also got all these sources, and we pull in all the sources, and we've come up with a semi-annual report, but then they have to put it all together, as opposed to a daily chain where we assemble it for them, and then we also provide them with like secondary things so that if Dune does roll back, or if Dune doesn't have those, it can show it. But go on, Mr. Bean, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just go on the record as being that guy, but obviously none of us community members know what Dune actually costs per year because that was not disclosed to us. But I would argue it's probably going to be higher than Intersect running this one small tool. And that there is a possibility that the Treasury does not continue to fund Dune analytics. So putting all of our eggs into the Dune basket may not necessarily be the best option because I know all of these critical integrations come with yearly licensing price tags that are also open questions.
Yeah, I get that. I also agree. As one of the community members, right? I think I just named Dune as one level of higher level of abstraction that is industry wide recognized, right? Because regulators usually, if they are not understanding of what goes under the hood of something they need, they usually delegate their trust to one of the most known industry partners. So I just named Dune as it, but Dune essentially queries or serves data from Parquet files from Yassi store, or in essentially querying the chain just like DB Sync does, right? I also agree that this would be much more scoped, like, so it would be much less of a burden. And if there's a need, why not? I'm just trying to lay out the discussion for, okay, how do we spot the gap where, why, or how much it would cost the Treasury to upkeep this or the Intersect to upkeep this? Is there an estimation of this? Or engineering hours, or is this is just exploration?
Yeah, I'll answer this and I'll let Tex answer. So I honestly don't know how much it will cost to maintain. That's why I'm coming to you guys. What I will say though is that you're right that the regulators look for somebody to provide them with the evidence. They basically say, like, we're not going to go do this work ourselves. Show us the evidence. And so this is basically our attempt to say Intersect is that trusted partner to show the evidence. And so we have right now, so this will establish essentially a real-time landing page, landing portal that shows what is the real-time snapshot of what it is right now on a daily basis, but then also that daily look back on each day you want to look back. What was the snapshot from Dune? What was the snapshot from Koyos? What was the snapshot from the full node? And so you can actually cross-reference each, and you can go back. Then you can go to Dune maybe and verify it, or you could go to rebuild it from the from the data available on the blockchain to verify it at that state. Go on, Tech.
Yeah, I just wanted to address the cost question more specifically here at this point. So I was speaking with Adam about this in the background, obviously working on moving this towards the application phase, and what we had discussed in the current state of the project. Obviously, this would need to be open source as best as possible here. We talked about how that could be stewarded under Intersect, as Intersect is not able to make a funding decision on this directly at this time, meaning that budgetary funds are already accounted for in other places. It would be best if this were, sponsored or picked up by a third party for a period of, let's say, 12 to 15, no more than 18 months. Get the initial, I guess we have the initial development features here, right? But get through the code audit, get some additional development done. That would ideally be under the maintainer retainer program, and then looking at this in that 12 to 15 month window here, Intersect would then have the ability, if they choose to be the future maintainers of this tool, to pick up any explicit ongoing funding later on. But I mentioned I was going to say numbers here. I was looking at this under the Tooling Sustainability Program, and pending additional quotes, I don't really see this costing more than roughly 20,000, 15 to 20,000 US to just get it up and running for a period of 1 year, and to have a code audit, a respectable code audit completed. So I was basically assuming somewhere between 3,000 and 5,000 for a code audit, and a residual 10,000 to 12,000 for again, just having somebody else host the actual viewing of this tool, despite the stewardship of the repository under Intersect from an open source nature. And then again, leaving that to Intersect or another third party for the decision in about that 12 to 15 month time period.
Yeah, just as an add-on to give context of what's available in open source ecosystem we have, So we have tool called Yassi Store. Many of you have heard it, which can be modularly configured to pick up on certain data points on the chain, right? And it has a cool feature to serve Parquet files, which are like an easy to digest data format for to be exposed on different surfaces, let's say. Maybe there might be an even cheaper way to get this up on its leg, and we can collaborate across the open source ecosystem here instead of creating a custom solution. As there are tools in higher level of abstractions that are modular enough to serve this need already, that pick up data from the chain and serve them in an easy to digest format. Just as a thing to add here. And the maintainers are pretty open to feedback, and Intersect can collaborate with them to get them to make a digestible package of exactly these needs, of these endpoints that are needed. And you wouldn't have to worry about auditing the code base, etc., and upkeeping this. But this is just for additional context here.
I mean, yeah, I'm open to integrating, having things like that integrated at the maintainer. Say like, oh, we've got this thing we can plug into that, if that makes sense. I mean, that makes sense to me. I'm just concerned about the fact that I want to get the regulatory chain, the chain of evidence started as quickly as I can, because if we're lucky, the Senate could actually pick up the Clarity Act and pass it in the next week or by the end of September, and then it'll go into rulemaking. And it would be great to have that chain of evidence, that that provenance that we are showing in place by then. But if you know, that's kind of part of, you know, like showing that we have this, like these snapshots that they can look at. But I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of ways to get the cat to do that.
Yep. So do you think that if a chain or a body doesn't serve, like a body like Intersect doesn't serve these endpoints in an easy to consume way for regulators, the regulators outright cancel how they view the chain, and if it's decentralized and if it's all, you know, whatever fits their requirements? Or do you think there would be a grace period of somehow this chain needs to find a body to serve this endpoints to them, etc.? I think that would be rather going on like that, right?
No, I mean,
so is there really an emergency?
This is a political issue, man. I mean, this is about narrative, right? The Clarity Act comes out. Who is considered decentralized? Who's not? Do you want Cardano to be able to say, like, hey, we've got the evidence. You go here, you can see that Cardano is decentralized. Like, that's what we're all trying to do, right? That's what every blockchain is trying to do. That's why when the news comes out, that's why there are various people who are Bitcoin maxis that put out their hit pieces that say, well, this chain's not decentralized, this chain's not decentralized, this chain's not decentralized. So yeah, I mean, it's politics, it's a narrative, but that's why you amass overwhelming evidence of your position. That's what this portal is. It's an amassing of evidence that shows that Cardano is meeting the definition of a mature blockchain system. And when people look at the numbers, you then have to refute the numbers, and you have to say, like, hey, here's the metrics. You look at the metrics. Do we meet them or not? People then have to come back and say, well, no, this number isn't this, or this number isn't this. But now they're on defense instead of on offense. If we don't have something to show that, we're on defense and they're on offense, saying that we're not decentralized.
Yeah, but like in many discussions about this, I have always seen that when a chain kind of creates these surfaces to serve this data, they are always arguing that this is a self-serving thing. How do I verify this? Yada, 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 right? Like this was also the case with how Cardano or IOG defined the Nakamoto coefficient in collaboration with University of Edinburgh, right? And it wasn't widely recognized the same, etc. So, I get where it's coming from.
I totally agree with you, but the difference between my methodology and the methodology of the Edinburgh Research Group is that they invented their methodology, and then they came up with a defense as to why their methodology was the best methodology. What I am doing is I am applying the U.S. government's methodology, the U.S. government's requirements, and I am saying these are the requirements the U.S. government has set for what a mature blockchain system is. And then I go through all the metrics and I show all the metrics and I show people as much as possible double sourced from the blockchain where you find those metrics on our blockchain. So I mean, like I said, I'm open to ideas of how we do that. But the purpose of this tool is to show people like this is where you find how the U.S. government defines a mature blockchain system. This is how you find those metrics for Cardano. Look at those metrics and tell us whether or not it is. And guess what? We meet that definition.
So just looking at time, because we've reached the end of our hour here for today. I'd love to set up some additional time if it makes sense for committee members and Adam Rush here, so we can continue discussing this. Again, I think some great points have been raised, but we may benefit from some additional discussion over the next couple of days as things are, again, becoming time sensitive if they're not already. Bora, I can talk with you some more about this as well, but and I don't want this to feel like a like a discipline, but I noticed that there's a lot of things that you're bringing to the committee's knowledge here, and I'm wondering if there's any type of map that you could create as far as what's going on in the ecosystem. That way we can all be better prepared to understand and possibly make decisions before it comes to the public setting where we reach this, oh, well, there's already something here, there's already something here. If there are all of these tools out there, why are we not more connected with them would be the question. But that, again, that can require deeper analysis. We can talk more separately. But again, since we're at the end of the hour, are there any final comments? Anything else that we can address?
I was asking Tex. I was asking a quick question to Adam Rush that I guess the primary source of information is on-chain activities, right? But will there be also some off-chain activities or some other data which combined make it more, kind of usable? Is that also thought, or it's only on-chain data?
So it's, basically everything I source is from on-chain data, and even the attestation of funds held by Cardano Foundation and Cardano Development Holdings. The request from those organizations is to use Reeve, which is the tool where they attest to their holdings on-chain. So you have an on-chain attestation. So I would really love, I really love this feedback. Thank you guys so much for all of it. It's great, and I'm very happy to answer more questions. So I know that this is you guys have an incomplete picture, so please, check out the report that I wrote, check out the tool, and send me your questions, and I'd love to engage more. Absolutely.
Okay, good.
All right, just 3 minutes over, probably going to 4 here in a second. I do want to thank all of our guests for making the time to come and be with us here today. Please feel free to stop by at any time. I will put up probably a series of polls and decisions there. And I did have an agenda item to try to talk about Discord and async communication, because we do need to make some improvements there. Just notice for everyone who's here. But anyway, I will get some polls out to go over what we discussed, and I will try to get the minutes out later this afternoon as well. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please don't hesitate to reach out to myself or anybody else that you may trust in Intersect. Thanks.
Thanks, all.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.